This is also a really good place. There is a bathtub over here.
Severe weather safety is something we should all take seriously. Tonight, I've got tips on finding the safe space in your home.
Storms bring damage, but what do you do if a tree damages your property?
What happens is, they're in full bloom and there's nothing to protect them.
Farmers tackling new weather challenges in recent years. We take a look at what they're facing and what they're doing to save their crops.
How is it thunderstorm?
And we're answering kids' questions about the weather. Welcome in. As severe weather season nears, the WTOL 11 weather team welcomes you to our weather special. I'm Chief Meteorologist Chris Vickers. We've got the whole team together to bring you the information you will need to keep yourself and your family safe during severe weather season. Now, it may be a fuse lit by sweltering summer heat that's capable of creating a storm, longer lasting and perhaps more destructive than a tornado. It's called a derecho. It's a windstorm driven by large clusters of explosive thunderstorms, typically organized into large squall lines with intense bow echoes that drive that damaging straight-line wind. These massive storms can be several hundred miles wide, track for up to 12 hours, and cover hundreds, if not thousands of miles. A derecho is typically organized into large squall lines with intense bow echoes, which drive damaging straight-line winds. Most common in the Central Plains and Midwest, our area can average up to 1 derecho per year. The majority of these storms strike in the months of May, June, and July, but can happen year-round. Nearly 10 years ago, parts of our area was devastated by a derecho on June 29, 2012. Sizzling summer heat fueled the eruption of a massive complex of storms that roared into our area on the afternoon of June 29th. The storm produced straight-line winds of up to 90 miles per hour, lasting for several minutes. It began in Illinois and within hours barreled across the heartland, leaving a trail of destruction over 1,000 miles long and 5 million customers across nearly a dozen states without power. Many were left shocked and in despair, sweltering in triple-digit heat that followed. Communities in Northwest Ohio without power for days and weeks after the derecho in June of 2012. Nearly $3 billion in damages from this single storm. One of Ohio's costliest and deadliest natural disasters came from a sudden derecho on the 4th of July, 1969. It struck with little to no warning and became known as the Ohio Fireworks Derecho. Shortly after 8 p.m., a cluster of storms formed into a derecho in southern Michigan. The storm hit Toledo with wind gusts measured to 104 miles per hour, toppling an estimated 5,000 trees in just minutes. Adjacent lakeshore areas from Toledo to Cleveland hit even harder. Those looking to celebrate the July 4th holiday on the lake unexpectedly caught in the crosshairs of a mammoth storm. Over 100 boats on Lake Erie capsized, dozens drowned, over 40 fatalities total, and $65 million in damages made this one of Ohio's costliest natural disasters at the time. The agricultural impacts can be devastating. In August of 2020, a massive derecho in Iowa packed winds of over 120 miles per hour. An estimated 5 million acres of corn and soybeans flattened. From Iowa to western Ohio, the total damages of $11 billion made this the costliest thunderstorm complex in U.S. history. Storms like this can and will happen again. As you saw, derechos are just as dangerous as tornadoes. And as we head into severe weather season, having your emergency kit fresh will be a big help. We have items like food, water, and of course, batteries that may help out. Just to name a few, the full list will be at WTOL.com. Once your kit is complete, store it in your safe spot. Meteorologist Diane Phillips shows us where that safe spot in your home is.
Home. It's where we feel safe and protected. Though we feel comfortable when severe weather rolls in, do you know where your safe spot is? Whether you live in an apartment, manufactured home, or have a basement, there are different ways to stay safe from the storm.
If your home has a basement, then that's the place to go when under a tornado warning. But if your home doesn't have a basement, then where do you go?
It's really important to remember two things. So to get as low as you possibly can and to put as much as you can between you and the outside world.
Erin Konecki from the Wood County Emergency Management Agency says there are 2 rules we must follow when a tornado is near.
If you don't have a basement and that's not an option, make sure you're on the ground floor or the lowest you can possibly be, and then the most interior that you can be.
Just like a house, the lower you can go in an apartment, the better.
When you're on an upper floor and you can't get away, again, seek shelter in the interior portion of the apartment, away from as many things that could break and debris as you can. This is also a really good place. There is a bathtub over here. I would make sure if you were in that bathtub though, to make sure that you pulled the shower curtain as some sort of barrier. You can also grab the mattress off your bed if you were able to do so and use that as a secondary barrier to make sure that debris wouldn't hit you or anything like that. Closing the door.
Konecki encourages renters to make friends living on the ground level and ask your landlord about shelter options. If you live in a mobile home, it's especially important that you are plugged into the weather.
If it's just a watch and there's some, whisperings of severe weather in the area later that day, make a plan. Reach out to neighbors, friends.
If you must shelter in a mobile home, head to the center and cover your head and body.
And also don't open up your windows. I know that that's a that's a myth, people say with the pressure, but it wastes time. And you're also violating one of the #1 rules, right? So you don't want to be close to windows, and then you don't want to take away a barrier.
It might sound silly to do, but wearing even a bike helmet, putting on shoes, long pants, and a long coat could be a good idea to protect yourself from flying debris. And advance notice is key to stay ahead of a storm. This is why we issue alert days for those times when the weather will impact your daily routine. You can get all the alert day information, plus have interactive radar, exclusive video forecasts, all on our free WTOL 11 weather app. Give that a download today.
All right, we have so much more to go, but it's time for a short break right now. When we come back, we're going to look into the odds of your house being hit by a tornado. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. It is important for meteorologists to understand the winds in a tornado and the damage they produce to help keep you safe and prepared. To do that, we use the enhanced Fujita scale, and we will begin with an EF1 tornado that has winds of 86 to 110 miles per hour. This often results in power outages. Softer wood trees like pine trees are snapped, and there could be significant damage to roof tiles and shingles. In an EF2 tornado, winds can reach 135 miles per hour. It's important to note that even at this point, mobile homes can be destroyed. There will be more significant damage to the roof itself. Larger trees will begin to lose more limbs, and significant power outages once again will be expected. Now with an EF3 tornado, significant portions or the entire roof may be lofted off. Large trees will be snapped and toppled, and this is considered a severe tornado with major damage that will be possible. An EF4 tornado, the damage may be devastating with winds of 166 to 200 miles per hour. Even well-built structures will sustain extreme damage, including the collapsing of interior walls and possibly even that structure itself shifting off of the foundation. Now the major EF5 tornado has winds in excess of 200 miles per hour and will often result in the structure itself being reduced down to the foundation. It's very common that large objects the size of cars are picked up and lofted great distances in the air. An EF5 tornado is exceptionally rare, and it's very likely you will never experience winds like this in your lifetime. But what would that look like? We sent meteorologist Matt Willoughby over to the Imagination Station to take a look.
First, we experienced how it would feel with an EF1 tornado. And then we cranked it up to the equivalency of an EF3 tornado. Now, while I was in the hurricane chamber, it almost felt like I couldn't move my hands all the way up at 157 miles per hour. It was almost impossible to hear or see, and that's sometimes what you experience during a EF3 tornado. Last year, I did in fact experience Hurricane Ida. They match up very similar as to how it felt in the hurricane chamber. But in a hurricane, winds will feel like they are coming from all different directions. And that would be the same feeling you get as if you were in a tornado.
So just exactly what are your chances that you personally, your house will be hit by a tornado right here in our area? I did the math to find out. Palm Sunday, 65. Anthony Wayne High School, 91. Van Wert and Tiffin, 2002. Millbury, 2010. These storms and dates bring back devastating memories to families here in Northwest Ohio. Naturally, the same storms also tend to create a fear for when the next tornado may strike. Add to those memories the catastrophic images following fresh tornado disasters in Kentucky and Illinois late last year. And for some, the idea of severe storms can be near crippling, worrying about the safety of themselves and their loved ones. Preparation and plans before severe weather are always the best idea, and we know and expect these storms every spring, summer, and even fall. But have you ever wondered what the actual chances of you specifically being hit by a tornado? Well, it turns out it's pretty low, even here on the edge of Tornado Alley. Let's break down the numbers and show you the map of every tornado touchdown since 1950 in our area. When you average this out, it comes out to about 3 to 4 tornado touchdowns every single year. And the most common tornado is the weakest, an EF0. The strongest tornado ever recorded in our area, it was an EF4, and that's happened on several occasions. Wow, let's look at this in even closer detail. On average, these tornadoes damage about a half square mile of our area every single year. You do the math and figure out there's roughly 6,000 square miles in our area, and the chances of you being hit by a tornado are about 1 in 12,000. Maybe that doesn't seem like as far of odds as what you thought, but that's your chance of being hit by any tornado. What about a strong one like an EF4? Or what about the strongest parts of those tornadoes? Well, your odds go down to about 1 in 120,000. Since 1950, there's only been a violent tornado about once every decade. And while they don't touch down very often, they can stay on the ground for a long time, and we do have to be prepared. The fact is, tornadoes in general don't happen a lot here sitting on the far edge of Tornado Alley, but when they do, we need to use our tornado safety and preparation tips. Reporting in studio, I'm meteorologist Ryan Weekman.
Ryan, great work. Thank you for that breakdown. Now, severe weather, it can feel like a splinter when it comes to falling trees, but the aftermath, it can leave you in a daze of problems to solve. Question is, who's responsible for the tree if it causes damage and where it falls? Meteorologist Matt Willoughby has the answers.
Trees that are owned by the city are typically found between the sidewalk and the curb. It's the responsibility of the city if damage happens here.
The city maintains those trees. If those were to collapse because of a weather event or an act of God, we do have a division of forestry that would go out and maintain that. They would either trim back the tree or they would remove it.
But what if trees fall on your house or business during a severe weather event?
Division of Forestry that employs people who are very well versed and certified in taking care of tree canopies and their arborists and things like that. We also have a law department that you can file property damage claims with, and we can investigate through that manner.
Kennedy recommends when dealing with personal property to reach out to an attorney. But what do you do if the tree is on your property? I spoke with an attorney from Charles Bork to see what happens if you have damage to your property.
So if you do have damage, go back to the policy, see what is covered, see what's not covered, make a claim with your insurance company, call your adjuster right away.
Now, once everything is totaled up, you may receive a prorated cash value.
The most important things to know is don't try to be cheap with your policy. People all the time think we'll never need to use it until you need to use it. So always check your policy. Don't try to not include things. Don't try to lie to your adjuster. Make sure everything is covered, because when the time comes, you want that policy to cover everything that you need.
Long before the tree even falls, there are steps you can take to prevent tree damage. All homeowners should take the time the next few weeks to check your trees. A warning sign may be bark falling off, splitting, or no blooming during the spring thaw. John?
Thanks for that information, Matt. The weather can be an inconvenience for many of us, but for others, it's much more than that. Up next, how local farmers are learning to deal with changing weather patterns in order to save their crops. Welcome back. The fall harvest is the culmination of months of hard work and planning for farmers here in our area, but before they can reap the benefits, the farmers must make sure their crops survive the sometimes erratic spring weather. Spring is a time of rebirth and growth, but also ups and downs in the weather. Spring weather for local farmers can make or break their livelihood for the year. This season has already delivered a roller coaster of weather conditions that has impacted local farmers, including Jeff McQueen, an apple and peach farmer in Holland.
Last weekend we had 70-degree weather. It didn't affect us yet, but if it would have been that way for the next 4 or 5 days, then the apples and peaches would have broke dormancy.
During the winter months, apple trees rest in dormancy with their buds closed for protection from the elements. Just like you and I stay indoors to keep warm during the winter, apple buds do the same. A prolonged stretch of mild weather cues flowering, and an early season warm spell may mean trouble for apple trees.
Normal bloom for apples in our area is around the 8th of May.
Okay.
And if it did turn warm like that, we've already had it end of April.
And once the apple trees are in full bloom, a hard freeze can be devastating. The McQueens know the pain of losing a crop due to a warm spell followed by a hard freeze.
That could make or break you on a crop. It's just 1 or 2 degrees.
These ups and downs in spring weather have grown more common in recent years, making the job of local farmers more difficult.
It seems like it's more common than not the last 10 years. Before we never thought about it. We just wait till spring, they'd flower, we'd go on.
Due to the impacts of climate change and variable weather, many farmers, including the McQueens, have had to adapt.
The only thing we do now is try to do more frost protection.
Many gardeners are familiar with covering up plants on frosty cold nights, but the McQueens employ other higher tech methods, such as drainage tiling and wind machines to circulate air.
We were supposed to get 24, so we hired 2 helicopters, we had smudge pots, we had wind machines, but the problem that night was it was such a clear night. There really wasn't any warm air to invert down.
While cold temperatures can ruin a season's crop, so can flooding rainfall.
Apples, they don't like wet feet, their roots. So, and what we plant now are more surface roots. They don't really get down that deep. And so if you have a wet area, it stunts the growth of that tree.
Standing water not only stunts tree growth, but can increase the risk of invasive pests and fungal infections.
Anytime you get so many hours of wetness and then the humidity is high, we only have so many hours to go back in and cover up.
This cycle of covering up trees and spraying for insects seems endless during the wet spring months, but at the end of the day, McQueen relies on the trusty 10-day forecast.
You never know in the springtime how much you're going to spray. It all depends on my weatherman.
Whatever the weather, the WTOL 11 weather team will keep you safe and informed this spring. Reporting in Toledo, John Birchfield, WTOL 11.
Great report, John. Very important for this area. Still ahead, we're going back to school.
I wonder what tomatoes are made out of. I wonder what clouds are made out of, too. What is water made out of? How is wind made? How does it rain cats and dogs?
Oh, the sweet questions coming in, and we're going to answer some of those weather questions directly from the kids. You'll see that after the break. Welcome back. As meteorologists, we love it when we are invited to area schools to talk to the children about weather. So we wanted to share some of that fun with you as we answer some of the questions from local kids. Our first question comes to us from Judy. She's a first grader at Holloway Elementary.
If dogs have more senses than us, why are dogs scared of thunder?
That is a great question, and dogs can sense those thunderstorms coming from miles away, and they are afraid because they simply don't know what the booming noise is, and then they feel threatened. Some studies also show that they can detect the static electricity from the storms, and then that gives them a sense of anxiety.
Great answer, Diane. Many of us with pets at home have wondered that same exact thing. We have another question from Holloway Elementary, this time from Eli.
Yeah, what are rainbows made out of?
Amazing question, Eli. Rainbows are made out of the sunlight and a bunch of tiny rain droplets. The sun enters the rain droplet at a specific angle, which separates the white light into the many different colors you see in a rainbow.
The beautiful colors indeed. Up next, we have a question from Ava. She's in first grade at Holloway Elementary.
Does rain clouds come from the white clouds, and do they just turn gray when it's ready to rain?
Well, good question, Ava. Usually those puffy white clouds associated with blue skies and sunshine, and the darker gray clouds, those are often a sign that rain and even a thunderstorm on the way.
Our next question comes from Matt, a second grader at Rossford Elementary.
How is lightning formed?
Matt, that's a fantastic question because I often wondered the same thing as a kid myself. The simple answer is lightning comes from static electricity. What is static electricity? Well, have you ever rubbed a balloon on your head and the hair goes boom, stuck straight up? That is static electricity. Happens up in the clouds too with ice and rain. They rub together and make a big lightning bolt that we see in the sky.
Finally, a question from the second grade at Rossford Elementary, student Emma.
How is fog formed, and is it always windier on colder days?
Great questions, Emma. Fog is formed essentially as clouds do in the sky, but only at the surface. And yes, exactly right. The wind can make it feel colder. We call that the wind chill factor. Well, this concludes our severe weather special dedicated to keeping you safe and informed. Download the free WTOL 11 weather app and be first alerted if and when severe weather strikes. Thank you for joining us this evening. Stay safe.